Hey everyone, I know it's a bit late, but I had more college things to do. And not just any things, programming things. And let me just say that I hate programming. Okay, being in game design and having to learn programming is a lot like if you really love animals and want to be a vet, but then for breeding purposes you have to learn to jack off the dog. I used to think it was the spawn of Satan, but no, it's not even that. Programming is the spawn of Satan that Satan tried to kill off because he feared it would become more powerful than him, but it was already too late. But anyway, at long last I am here to review the show that people have repeatedly bothered me to do so. So without further ado, I give you my review of Code Geass R2, Lelouch of the Rebellion. Now first of all, I'd like to mention that Code Geass is made by Clamp, a fairly well-known group of mangakas that consists of 3 girls who started out with doujinshi, fanfiction, then eventually made their own stuff. They're responsible for Ray Earth, which was bland, XXX Holic, which was alright and kinda fun, and Chobits. And the answer to that show is no. Now, I don't know if Clamp has some kind of quality knob that they forgot to turn up until just now, but my relatively mediocre expectations of them were none short of shattered when they made this show. In a single sentence, Code Geass is like a cross between Death Note and Gundam. And if that right there didn't pique your interest, I'm afraid you just failed at life. The show was 2 seasons long for a total of 50 episodes, with R2 being the unnecessary add-on to denote the second half. The premise starts out that in 2010 ATB, whatever that means, the Empire of Britannia invented this show's interpretation of giant robots called Nightmare Frames, and used them to conquer about a third of the world. This includes the entirety of Japan, which has been stripped of all rights and renamed Area 11, with all its people being treated as second-class citizens and legally unallowed to even call themselves Japanese anymore, instead being dubbed 11s. Needless to say, this causes some resentment among the people, and more than a few of them have taken up arms to get their country back. Enter the show's main character, Lelouch Lamperge, whose real name is Lelouch v. Britannia, as he is actually a Britannian prince. Why hide it? Because when he was a little kid, his mother got killed in a very messy assassination attempt that also somehow left his little sister Nunnally blind and crippled. Within his emotional trauma, he blamed his father, the ruler of Britannia, for not protecting his mom because he was too busy being a bastard, taking over the world, and making enemies that would want to do things like assassinate the queen. So now he spends his time as a regular student at an academy, pretending to be normal and plotting his revenge. Seriously. Fortunately for him, one day he just so happens to get randomly mixed up into the hijinks of some rebelling citizens and runs into the quote-unquote mysterious girl, C2, who bestows upon him the power of Geass, which causes a little birdie symbol to appear in your eye, and for Lelouch allows him to give any person he makes eye contact with one command that they will obey without question. Anything. Even killing themselves. With this mind-controlling ability in hand, Lelouch decides to begin his mission of destroying Britannia all so he can make a peaceful world for Nunnally to live in, and does so by posing as the heroic figure of Zero! No, wait. Zero! No, okay. No, yeah, that Zero. And so the story goes from there. Lelouch himself is a character who keeps reminding me of Light from Death Note, since he's a young lad who is outrageously smart, disturbingly manipulative, and has an ultimate goal of changing the entire world with a superpower he stumbled upon that makes people do whatever he wants. As for the previously mentioned characters of Nunnally and C2, Lelouch's kid and sister Nunnally plays the role of the iconic little maiden who doesn't do much but is so cute and innocent and disabled that the show is virtually beating you over the head with the idea that you're supposed to feel sorry for her. While C2, whose name is actually spelled CC in the credits, but everyone calls her C2, whatever, also doesn't really serve as much more than a token character. You'd think that for such a seemingly important role as the one who gave the main his powers, that she'd have a much bigger part in the story, and while she does have some effect on it, most of her job description just involves her eating pizza and laying around Lelouch's room in suggestive positions. The other central character in the show is Suzaku, who is the son of a Japanese diplomat and has been Lelouch's friend since childhood. The main drama with him is that, unknown to Lelouch, Suzaku has been recruited by the Britannian army to pilot their fancy new robot, the Lancelot. And for most of the first season, there's a lot of focus on the fact that Suzaku and Lelouch, aka Lancelot and Zero, keep clashing with each other on opposite sides of the battlefield while not knowing that they are fighting their best friend. And though it's a spoiler, it shouldn't be a surprise that eventually they do find out and much drama ensues. Last but not least of the main characters is Colin, or Karen, depending on which fan subs you're watching, who is one of Lelouch's classmates and, like him and Suzaku, somehow balances high school with fighting a revolution. She starts out as the member of an underground military group that early on gets discovered by Zero, who becomes their leader and renames them the Order of Black Knights. Colin quickly becomes their ace frame user, piloting the familiarly named Gurren, and Zero's second in command. As the show goes on, she develops a kind of idolizing loyalty to Zero, and is actually a nicely done example of a strong female character. However, she is also the target of most of the show's fan service, as the camera has an annoying habit of finding its way into her nether regions. And while yes, I have seen much worse, this brings up what bothers me about Clamp. You would think that a group run by 3 girls would treat their own kind with some respect, but instead they insist on the lowbrow ratings pander so much you'd swear they were 15-year-old boys. I mean, for God's sake, they made Chobits. And here they've got Colin going, "Sure, classmate, I barely know. Come on in while I'm showering. It's okay since I have this flimsy translucent curtain up." And, "Hey, there's a bunch of people having an official meeting in the next room. I think I'll wander in clad in nothing but a single towel." But, as I've said, I've seen much worse, and overall Colin is still a far better example than most of a good female lead. Now, as far as the actual show itself goes, it's actually quite good, and the thing that stands out the most about it is the extremely well-done storyline. The story is quick-paced and highly active. This is the kind of show where if you miss even one episode, you'll have no idea what's going on, and every episode ends with a dramatic cliffhanger. Like with many good giant robot politics and war stories, there are a bajillion little side characters, each with their own tiny story arcs that play out throughout the show. The main one, of course, follows Lelouch and his campaign as Zero, and as the show goes on, one of the most involving things about it is how you watch him slowly change from masked hero into evil genius, bit by bit becoming less the underdog you rooted for and more the conquering bastard you thought he was fighting against. He and Suzaku also pull more and more apart from each other despite their similar goals, with the main issue being that Lelouch will crush the current government to make a new one, while Suzaku wants to change the current government from the inside. Now that this is also the kind of story where lots of bad things happen, and if I were to tell you that dies, even the people who have already seen it don't know whose name I just bleeped out. However, while the plotline is very intricate and that is generally to its strength, that can also be its weakness. Sure, it helps to round out the story of the big picture, but it can also leave some of the smaller points not filled out as much as you'd like them to be, and at times it seems like they were cramming in plot points just for the sake of them being there. For example, the entire thing with Ogi and Valletta, if you'll mind the minor spoilage, I felt to be completely unnecessary. For one, it starts with, "I hit my head and now I have amnesia," like we haven't heard that a million times, and then it goes on for a bit before being put on hold forever. Then at the very end you see a brief flash of Ogi telling Valletta she's pregnant and her being surprised. That's right. He tells her that she's pregnant, and she is shocked. What makes less sense than that? The fact that this happens after they haven't been in contact with each other for what, a year or so, and she's still a twig? Last I checked, it took about 9 months. And as far as we know, they didn't even get it on when they were together. I mean, come on, this is like in Naruto when all of a sudden Kurenai was pregnant with Asuma's baby, which we didn't find out until after he died, and this is the same moment we find out that they even had anything to do with each other at all. Alright, look, writers, I know that the miracle of life is real dramatic and inspiring at all, but stop trying to crowbar the concept in where it doesn't belong just for the sake of it being there. Okay, I am very against using crowbars on babies. Anywho, the production's pretty solid. The show gets more of a budget in the second season, and while the animation didn't amaze me, it maintains a very solid, respectable quality throughout the show, and the occasional fight scene is pretty well done. The music is nice and focuses on an orchestral tone, including that one track where it seems to be integrating cowboy music, though it works. The voices are all high quality and well casted, though it's a little ridiculous just how hammed up the 17-year-old Lelouch's deep, dramatic Zero voice is. However, it's still enjoyable to watch. There are only a few episodes of filler in the whole show, which all seem to revolve around the student council president believing that a high school student council has the authoritative powers of Christ. And whether you take the filler as a welcome break to the high-strung happenings of the story or as an irritating delay to it is up to you. The manga has a total of 4 different versions, each one taking place in the same universe but with a totally different storyline and each written by a different author, so have fun with that. The show also does that thing anime loves to do where every major character ends up going to the same school, and this show takes it to a new extent as eventually it seems like every character between the ages of 15 and 25 with more than 3 minutes of screen time ends up not just in the same school, but in the same blasted classroom as Lelouch. Fortunately, they don't waste too much time on it, though. They also do that thing where every time a newer, shinier giant robot is revealed, everything else may as well be a rusty tuna can, so I would have liked them to give a little more credit to the pilot's personal skills. Overall, though, while I may be able to nitpick a few things about the show, it is quite clear that Code Geass is far above the quality of your average anime. This is top-shelf stuff and is without question the best thing I've seen Clamp make. Wait, what was that? Really? Oh, okay. It was actually a group project between Sunrise and Clamp that Clamp mostly drew for. Okay, that explains a lot. Anyway, I highly recommend this show. I'd give it an A-, and I suggest you go watch it. Thank you, and good night. Now will someone please make this dog stop following me?